So
guy's also giant, so
yeah,
he's the BFG.
yeah, for sure. He's very friendly. I will give him that.
Now I was definitely rooting for him when I saw him doing well, and it sucks to see what happened to him there. But I'm sure he'll bounce back.
Yeah, he'll have opportunities to break on through here coming up in the
To the other side.
Yeah, to the other side. The next few tournaments that are coming up locally.
I also want to just point out here, 16th place, Seth Manfield.
Yep,
still rolling along.
Still crushing it.
Didn't top 8 this one. It looked like he was gonna. He was undefeated in day one. It was just like, man, is he gonna do it again? And like, I honestly had that feeling like, if he somehow, I don't know if he lost in the last round because I know he was right there. It's like if he somehow sneaks into top 8 again, it's like, are you really gonna bet against him? Like,
yeah,
he just if he gets to the top 8, he's probably gonna win.
Yeah, it's very hard for you to be dissuaded against the any other outcome that could happen. But
right.
So we have this one. We have the top 100 metagame breakdown day one. Blah blah.
This is like the fake
I have one more
metagame
deck I
breakdown.
want to
come on!
Let me mention a cool deck.
Okay,
literally 60%.
This is probably the
green,
last
white,
thing. This is the last standard deck we're going to talk about until rotation.
Great, I'm proud of it.
Probably.
It has Whirler Rogue in it.
I'm down.
All right, number 27, Alan Sun's Blue-Green Ramp. Now, it's called Blue-Green Ramp, but if you look at it, you will notice a distinct lack of ramp creatures. The creature base is 1 Whirler Rogue, 4 Den Protector, 4 Elvish Visionary, 2 Nissa Vastwood Seer.
Okay.
It's playing 4 Anticipate, 3 Send to Sleep, 1 Void Shatter, 4 Crush of Tentacles, 3 Part the Water Veil.
Oh.
2 Slate Beyond Sight, 3 Exclusive Vegetation, 3 Nissa's Pilgrimage, 1 Nissa's Renewal.
Oh.
This is a Crush of Tentacles, Part the Water Veil ramp deck. That is what it's trying to do.
I'm down to clown.
Look at some of the sweet lands we have here. We have Blighted Woodland, we have Lumbering Falls, we have Rogue's Passage. Notice that between the Rogue's Passage and Whirler Rogue, he wants to make sure that tentacle is getting in.
just the one tentacle.
And Skyline Cascades, which are that's kind of sweet.
I've had some experience against that card.
Yeah, this deck's a little odd and out there. Now, in the sideboard, you do see your 1 copy of Ulamog, and you see some. You can go into Deathmiss Raptor and Advocates and be sort of like mid-rangey, but this deck just wants to play a bunch of ramp spells and then play Crush of Tentacles, which is sweet. Now, I don't know how good Crush of Tentacles is against like Collected Company in general, nor is it very good against Reflector Mage. But Part of the Water Veil is a pretty good way to win the game once you're at the end of it. Like there's not a lot of good ways to interact if you start chaining those into each other. So this is really unique deck that is definitely like there's nothing like this in either GP.
Yeah, I haven't been keeping up with the online results recently, but I've heard of this deck doing well on Magic Online. Which would kind of make sense. It looks like it's relatively cheap to build. I mean, other than the Nissas, is like really nothing that's super expensive here.
Right. Again, it's nice to see something interesting kind of show up this late in the field, but we'll see what happens if you it's not something you care about. You have local standard events that you are invested in, things like that. This could be a fun thing to take to an FNM or to a bigger event if you got the gusto for it.
That's the last one. Promise.
All right, perfect. So let's talk about this top 100 metagame breakdown business that we have here. So we see that 58% of this is green white tokens is some sort of green white deck basically, whether it be collected company humans or green white tokens. So again, its reign of terror continues.
The reign of terror of forests. I want you to understand that we're discussing this and it's a legitimate thing.
Yes, correct. The broccoli is very strong.
I knew I hated it for a reason.
There you go. Now you know.
So time for Wizards of the Coast to smother it in cheese sauce.
Is the cheese sauce red?
Yeah, sure.
It's like buffalo sauce.
Yeah, buffalo sauce.
There we go.
We added some red dye number 5. Sorry, people who have allergies.
So, yeah, I mean, is this going to be our last big, pretty much standard tournament? This series, is there any other big standard things that we are coming up after this?
I think that's it. We might have a Star City
Open or something like that.
But we don't have an Open this weekend.
We won't have an Open release weekend, so maybe the 9th?
I think there is one standard up. I know we have we actually have a standard up and coming to Columbus
That's the
in
week
about
after.
a month, and that
Yeah.
is after rotation. Well, not rotation, but after
Set release.
set release.
Yeah, they're. Hold on here. This might be
It's
showing
Legacy.
Me, yeah, is it Legacy? Because it's showing me a
Yes.
Thalia playmat. So,
Yeah, it's Legacy for next week.
SCG
And-
Worcester.
Worcester.
that was just
Nobody
for Dave.
says it like
that was
that.
just for Dave.
Yeah.
That was literally just to make the guy from the the Northeast Med.
So I guess the standard classic is probably the last one, which I don't know how. I guess. What?
We're celebrating Overwatch
Sorry.
victories here.
Gotcha.
My wife is camped in the living room playing Overwatch on mute, and I'm watching her blow people up, and it's enjoyable. It's very
It's very nice.
satisfying.
Anyway, yeah, I don't know how prestigious the standard classic is, or would consider that, but that's probably the last one we have before set release. So hopefully we'll see a change.
Yeah. That is our hope as well. But I have to say, overall, we only spent day one at GP Pittsburgh, but it was enjoyable, and the event was run fairly well, comparatively speaking. In all honesty, so I mean, what more can you really ask for it at any point in time? At this point in time, really. So, but moving on to our last tournament and sort of our longer discussion about Modern as a whole, we have the Star City Games Open in Dallas. This was a modern open, of course, and it had a final total of 995 players. I believe that the cap was 1,000, which would make sense because I believe it did sell out technically, and have players.
So wait,
not arrive.
995 people. Does that mean like Bud Light came in and bought the last 5 seats? So they call it a sellout.
Yeah, basically, pretty much. No, I mean, obviously, players just didn't show up, which happens. And it was won by Kevin Jones, one of 4 people from Metagame Gurus showing up in the top 8, which is insanity.
Morgan showed me that top 8 picture, and it was just like one half was just this horrific yellow color. I was like, oh god.
Yeah.
Good job, team.
When you get a lot of those jerseys together, it is a bit of garish.
I mean, Kevin literally told me when because the weekend they unveiled us when I played against him.
No, it wasn't Kevin. It was Jim Davis.
Jim Davis. I'm sorry, it wasn't Kevin. You're right. It was Jim Davis. He actually said that I'm like, people seem to like. How do they feel about this? He goes, love him or hate him, I don't care. Just tag the team when you tweet about them.
Yeah.
So they don't really care. They know that they are associated with it, and that's all that matters.
And honestly, what more could you ask for if you're going to have a uniform for tournaments? I mean,
yeah, that's true.
It makes sense to me. So, and he was playing Dave. He's playing Grixis Delver. He's playing Delvers.
I know.
Baby, come back.
He was finding all the secrets.
I'm off the deck. I've been off the deck for I don't know, a little over a month now. It's like it's glad it's like you're just out walking around. You're like, oh look, there's Delver over there.
It's
Look,
like I feel like
looks
Pretty Woman just start playing.
yeah, looks like he's doing.
Whoa!
Sorry,
like,
sorry,
look.
listeners. That woe might have
That one was great, and you know it.
that woe might have blown you away, though.
Pretty Delver.
There are a lot of red lights
Pretty
that
Delver.
a lot of red lights that came on the soundboard. Don't. We'll get sued, Katie.
So yeah, it's like, oh look, looks like he's doing well for himself. That's great. I moved on,
She's got a lot of new interesting friends that we didn't hang out with
I
them.
didn't associate with those people before,
Yeah.
but hey, that's fine.
I mean, does Delver hang out with any guys that wear shirts? Snapcaster wears shirts. That's good because we didn't click ain't wearing no shirts. Tasker ain't wearing no shirts.
No, it's no shirts club over here.
This is jrsmith.deck.
That's pretty great. So what's your hot take of this Delver deck, Dave? Since you're Delver secret expert.
So it's very similar to what Ryan Overturf used to top 8 in Star City Games Indie.
Does this deck have counter spells on the sideboard?
This one does not have counter spell.
No, it's counter squall. Obviously, that was a joke.
Yeah. Got
Yeah.
it.
Thanks for laughing, jerk.
But yeah, it's got a lot of the same things. It's got it's running the 20 lands. I think the only difference in the main deck is he's running a Vanillion Click in the main instead of like the 4th spell snare, and he's running 1 Dreadbore over one of the Terminates as a concession to Nahiri, which actually came up in his couple of his top 8 matches. So Dreadborough looked good in those matches. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it's fairly straightforward, fairly streamlined. Nothing real crazy going on.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. He defeated fellow teammate Andrew Jessup in the finals playing Infect. Which seems like I think that the Delver deck might have a pretty good percentage against that matchup.
Oh yeah, it's pretty good against that deck. I mean, you have a lot of spot removal.
Yeah.
And you have ways to pressure. Like it's not just that you're killing all their threats. It's like you actually have ways to pressure them.
Correct.
While you're killing their threats.
Yeah, you have a clock and you have ways to attack them.
Yeah, cheap removal and Snapcaster Mage really good against the effect. So
fair enough.
That was not a surprising outcome.
Sure.
But yeah, got a feel for Andrew Jessup a little bit. He made it to the finals of the last Modern Open, which was in Indianapolis, and lost to a teammate in the finals there.
But he keeps falling for his teammates' suggestions. It's like, well, I'm going to play this Grixis Delver. You know what you should play? You should just keep playing Infect. I think that you're really good at playing that. So even if we were in the finals, I'm sure you'd have a pretty good shot. In the it's not even like a real high probability that even happens, man. Just play Infect.
Yeah, I mean. In all fairness, he has been playing Infect.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
And he plays it very well. I mean, he was on camera quite a bit, and it's pretty impressive.
Consistently top 8ing modern events as well. Like you would probably be more. It'd probably be more to your advantage to play the deck that you have the most experience with and can play successfully. So yeah, why not?
I think I would say more surprising that Grixis Delver won is probably that 2 Jeskai control decks made top 8.
Yeah.
Peter Ingram running it back with a top 4 finish with his Jeskai control deck very similar to what he played in Indy, and Jim Davis also played this deck in Indy because I know Mike played against him in that tournament.
I did.
And honestly, I mean, this deck kind of came out hot, after that Indianapolis Open, and then it really kind of fell off after that. I mean, it was very popular for the first couple weeks after that because Nahiri was kind of new and hadn't really been played in Modern yet. And I feel like I don't know if people just kind of figured it out or it wasn't that great, but I see it make a bit of a resurgence in this tournament.
I think it's sort of interesting too. If you look at both of them, the spell suite here is like really shifted a little bit. Like Peter Ingram has Time Reinforcements in the main, Anger of the Gods in the main, which I know we saw Jerry T started playing Timelies, but both lists have cut Cryptic entirely. They had a couple before, then they were down to 1, now it's gone, which is sort of interesting because like there are a couple of board states where Cryptic is actually the only card that can protect Nahiri, so they're giving up some percentage with that, but they've really gone down to like small counter spells, overloading on both of them. Like there's 3 spell snares that Peter Ingram's playing, 2 that Jim was playing. So you really see them going a lot smaller on their spell package, which there's probably a lot of matchups where that's great, but you're definitely giving up some percentage on some of the matchups for Cryptic is really really important. So sort of interesting.
I think overall, Cryptic is going to be a liability in more matchups than it helps. I agree. It's obviously a very I'm going to say it's
powerful.
It's a powerful card in certain situations, but being 4 mana is a real drawback in Modern.
I think that's the major thing. If you're comparing these Jeskai decks to the old Jeskai decks, these both have 23 lands in them. Like these decks are no longer trying to like they're only playing a couple. Not nearly the 4 colonnades they were before. Like that's not the deck they are anymore. And I think that first few weeks you saw a lot of players giving away wins that deck because they assumed it was draw go and they just lose. And now people have adapted, so it's sort of interesting to see. Obviously it did well this weekend. To see how the people play against it.
I mean, the big difference now is really Nahiri. I mean, if you take out Nahiri, the deck looks very similar to how the decks used to operate, prior to Nahiri. But Nahiri just gives it the option of ending the game very quickly. So you don't need to focus on going super long anymore. You don't have to worry about, okay, I'm going to win this game with Celestial Colonnades and Cryptic Commands. All I need to do is control the board for a very short period of time, maybe the first 3 or 4 turns of the game, and then Nahiri's going to take over. Or my Ancestral Visions comes off of suspend, and then I can get ahead of my opponent that way. So that's kind of the angle that it's going now. So this is another deck that I could play since I have all the cards. So I haven't decided.
I'm going to borrow Tunahiri from you, so I'll play this deck. See, I helped.
There you go. Solve the problem. So what other decks here in the top 8 do we want to talk about? We do see that Living End actually shows up here, which is a deck that is you can see it occasionally in bigger tournaments, but doesn't necessarily always get the spotlight. Piloted by David Pierce. It seems like a fairly standard list from what we're looking at, but it's kind of interesting. People playing something like Grafdigger's Cage as their graveyard hate, which does not interact favorably with Living End, as it turns out. So definitely something to be wary of. But a deck like this can kind of come out of nowhere, or people just not be prepared for it. As most people aren't necessarily. You wouldn't necessarily go out of your way to prepare for Living End, but it kind of shows up and does its thing.
Yeah, also interesting that Living End, looking at these Nahiri control decks, Living End is actually a fairly clean answer to an ultimate with an Emrakul, where it's like, oh, okay, cool, I'll cast Living End then.
Yeah.
It's like, go ahead and sacrifice that Emrakul, shuffle trigger.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool. Honestly, it's just a really, there's nothing like crazy in this top 8. It's just very diverse, which is really nice to see. There's only one double, and that's the Jeskai twice. But
yeah, we'd have Zoo showing up again, piloted by Drew.
Eophrate?
Eophrate.
Iafrady.
Iafrady.
Is that really it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that deck was the hot thing for a second and kind of faded out and then comes back in.
Yeah, he's playing the
Bushwhacker Zoo, right?
Bushwhacker Zoo, Burning Tree Emissary, Bushwhacker. I guess he's a local ringer as well. We haven't seen him too much on the Open Series. I hadn't really heard of him, but
he was on camera. The Dallas area?
Local to the Dallas area, yeah.
Gotcha.
And he was on camera a couple times, and he was killing people very quickly, for the most part.
Fair enough. We see Jacob Ball show up with Abzan Company, very traditional for him. And then Jund, piloted by Jared Toe. So that deck is a fairly consistent show up in deck to show up in top 8, I should say.
I feel like you're always going to see like one Jund deck in top 8. It's just like you just pencil it in. You just know there's going to be one Jund deck.
You just hope that's you if you're playing Jund. You're like, well, maybe it'll be my tournament this time.
You don't want to be the 9th place Jund deck because there's always, like every other tournament, there's a 9th place Jund.
Yeah. Now, speaking of 9th place list, I feel like we should probably talk about the Eldrazi Taxes list that showed up in 9th for this tournament, piloted by Joseph Freeman. We see this as being a kind of a traditional taxes looking list where we have Aether Vial and things like Blade Splicer, Flicker Wisp, Lead Arbiter, and Thalia. The Guardian of Thraben. Now we have to actually express which Thalia it is.
I don't know if you do it just yet. let the other Thalia
come out,
try and
be released.
Prove itself in Modern first before we assume.
You can have both Thalias and play at the same time.
Yes, you.
That's a flavor fail.
You technically can. You time portal.
I think they work pretty well together too. They just like really mess with your.
They like meet each other and they're like, "We are awesome.
We are the
High
best."
five.
They're like what? They're like Mary Kate and Ashley, it's twins. Why
are you being so offensive to Thalia? She's a nice lady.
Fair enough. I apologize. But things get a little bit spicy. Spicy, that's all spicy.
It also gets spicy.
Yeah, things get a little spicy because we also have some very powerful Eldrazi creatures in Thought-Knot Seer, Reality Smasher, and Wasteland Strangler. Back at it again.
I played against this in testing this week. I got turn 2 Thought-Knot Seared. It not happened in a while. It was still upsetting. But I think the key interaction of this deck is actually between what makes this a little bit spicier than just regular, because Modern Death and Taxes has always been sort of a fringe deck. This might be a little bit better than fringe, if only because it's very, very difficult to get out of a Flicker Wisp Eldrazi Displacer loop, especially if they have an Eldrazi Temple in play. Because if they're playing Aether Vial, they don't tap mana for their guys. And you have to make sure, like, all right, well, I'm going to kill this Displacer so he can stop the flickering shenanigans. Well, then he flickers his, Flicker Wisp in response, which then flickers the Eldrazi Displacer and, messes with your spell. So it's really interesting that this, especially against other creature decks, like, man, it's got a lot of like a lot of resiliency that is kind of scary.
Yeah, definitely has a whole lot of game for sure. Would not discount that in the slightest. So definitely sort of a new kid on the block as it were coming out, spitting some hot fire.
Yeah, I mean, this is a deck that Jim Davis was actually playing prior to Indianapolis,
Mm.
and he didn't think it was very good. But
Well, I mean, give it a shot for yourself. See if it's something that you like, especially if
it did well in this tournament.
Yeah, and especially if you are that the Death and Taxes player, if that's a style of deck that you like to play, you do have options in Modern that could be quite viable. So give it a shot, try it out, do something different.
I do actually think that the new Thalia fits right into this deck, though. It does what you want, which is just mess with your opponent in various ways.
3,000%.
It also shuts down a bunch of cards that are like difficult for that deck to deal with. Like Collected Company shuts it down. Court of Calling shuts it down. Like that guy's coming to play tapped. I mean, like it depends on what they're getting. But like
shuts down Kiki combo, which is kind of cool.
It does shut down the Kiki combo, but I'm saying like there's also board states against that deck where like, all right, I'm going to cord for my
like P and Karen.
Yeah. Oh wait.
Yeah.
Oops.
This doesn't work how I want it to.
Speaking of Kiki Cord, Jeff Hoagland.
Yeah, I want to talk about this deck a little bit. Actually, so the 11th place and the 11th place and the 15th place list are both Jeff's. The sideboards are a little bit different. But this is the new version of Kiki Cord that has decided that 4 Nahiri is right. Now, I was one of the people who, I'm fairly new to Kiki Cord as a deck that I was able to put together a second modern deck when it was a little higher tiered so I could play when Giftstron is not good, which has been for a while now and I'm still sad. Anyways, and he started putting Nahiris in this and a couple of people did and I was like, I don't know, 4-mana non-creatures don't make a lot of sense. And then I started casting it. And then I started casting it on turn 3. And it made a difference. So then, him and I think it was Ollie Andrazi who actually played the list in the first large tournament, started putting blue in it and going up to the 4 Nahiri plus Emrakul. And it's just correct. I don't know if blue is the right splash or not. I don't know if that's actually better than black. With a blue splash, they're playing a Glen Elendra, which is real spicy. And they're also playing a Deceiver Exarch. Now, having played this a couple times, so what you lose out on the ability to go and get a Orzhov Pontiff, which is a big deal, especially in the mirrors. And you also lose the ability to get Sin Collector in certain matchups. Sin Collector is less of a loss, but Orzhov Pontiff's been rough, and I could literally see boarding it anyways.
Yeah, I mean he's playing Staticaster, which does a lot of the same work.
It's not the same work.
Well, it's not the same card, obviously, but I mean, you can bring it in against the same decks.
No, you're not wrong about that, but it's definitely it's not the same. But I will say the Exarch. So the Glen Elendra has been spicy just because it offers a lot of protection. But the Deceiver Exarch is the card that has been the most surprising to me. How good it's been. It lets you combo off a turn earlier against unsuspecting opponents if they tap out because they think that you're just going to you can't kill them unless you have an angel, and you're just like I'll cord for 3 to go get the Exarch, and then I can untap and cast my Kiki because it's in my hand, and they're like, "Oh wait, what?" And then they're dead. And the Deceiver Exarch lets you tap your opponent's sideboard cards against your Nahiri, which has happened multiple times. They play their you just mentioned it, Graphics Cage.
Yeah,
they play like their Ensnaring Bridge.
Yeah, and you tap it, and then you exile it with Nahiri, and that's insane. So the list is pretty nifty. There's some clunky draws. You're really upset when your hand is like 2 lands, Birds of Paradise, Wall of Roots, Emrakul. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that seems a bit rough.
Like we're gonna ramp to 15. Don't worry.
we got this. We can do it.
But it's a cool iteration of the deck, and I think I mentioned this to you earlier, Dave. I think that having played it for a while, this deck actually might be the better deck at protecting a Nahiri because it gets to play it a turn earlier, and it puts 0/5 walls in front of it. So.
Yeah,
let's see where it goes from here.
I definitely agree. We have a Blue Moon showing up in the top 60 as well, piloted by Jack Keefer, which is a kind of sort of a deck that waxes and wanes. Did you get it? Did you see what I did there? Because it's playing a Blue Moon deck.
Does it rise with the tides?
No, they're not playing any of that card. No. They're playing a lot of spells though. So.
Oh, okay.
But this deck is pretty interesting. You have two Thing in the Ice and 2P and Kieran Alar, as well as 4 Snapcaster Mage, and then you're obviously playing 4 Blood Moon main deck as well to try to get people. Yeah, but this deck is certainly something that we've seen previously, and it's a thing.
This deck just seems so boring to me. This is like this doesn't do anything.
Maybe this will do it for you. This is Jack Kiefer. This
Yeah,
is
I
one of
know.
the Kiefer siblings.
I know.
It's a young kid playing this deck.
I know.
To
I
a
get
good
it.
finish.
I get it.
I'm just saying.
I'm not saying it's a bad deck. I'm just saying it's boring.
Can I just take a second though to yell at whoever's formatting for Star
Oh,
City?
it's
like
all
poor
under-
Jack Kiefer's both his names are lowercase, and there's also an Infect deck in 18th that the I in Infect it's the only one that's lowercase. Like, come on, proofread for a second. Sorry, this
You
is something
only
that
have,
really
like-
bothers me personally.
So all right. So
but
does that bother you more than when they take like the same exact list and then they name one like
Oh,
one
it
thing and then they
definitely-
name the other thing
it
a different
definitely
name
bothers
even though
me
they're
more.
the same deck?
if I ever had a tattoo on my body, it would be a tattoo of a capital I. It's not a joke. I'm not kidding. I would literally get that just so everyone knows what a capital I looks like.
Forever.
On your forehead?
Yes, like the Faith Militant. I'll be the I Militant.
And see, it's even better too.
Be your
because
third eye.
My third eye. My capital I.
that's actually genius, and I'm fairly certain some crazy person out there has done that.
Look me in the eye. Which one? The capital I.
Oh, geez, that's great. I'm not even angry at that. That's great. Please do that.
I'd even have a sweet
I
superhero
encourage
name
you.
built in. I'd just be the I.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh boy.
You kind of would have to believe in capital punishment at that point in time too, though. If you're that superhero. Anyway, I would actually encourage everyone to take a look at the top 32. It's very diverse. There's certainly a lot of different archetypes that actually show up and that we'll want to kind of talk about when we kind of take a look at what our metagame looks like going forward into the lovely event that we have at Comic Town coming up here soon, and we definitely want to inform what's going to be happening at the Summer Classic as best as we can.
Asbestos?
As best as we can. Anyway, so why don't we sort of transition into that and talking about Modern at a greater capacity, and by taking a look at least at the day 2 metagame breakdown and some of the top decks that actually kind of show up. So we actually have Jund being the most decks represented in day 2, with a 10 coming back to play on Sunday.
Not surprising.
After that, we have Infect, and then Green Red Tron. Infect having 9 players come back on Sunday, and Green Red Tron having 7.
I will say, I think there was only one Green Red Tron in the top 32, though.
There is.
So.
It's at 16th place. So
Take
had a
that,
bit
Tron.
had a bit of a rocky day 2 for sure. Infect showing up in high levels definitely contributes to that for sure. But we definitely have a fairly good number of decks actually showing up for day 2. Even that Death Shadows aggro showing up as a one of green white hexproof. Even Ad Nauseam and Red Green Valakut as being sort of decks that we don't see a whole of the time, but are definitely really sweet.
Yeah.
So specifically talking about an event that's going to happen not this coming week but the week after that, we can at least discuss at length what we have showing up locally, which I think is fairly important. So locally, from what you guys have seen at Comic Town at those events, definitely a lot of Green Red Tron being played by people. Now, do you think that's something that, and obviously we see it do fairly well in conversion into day 2, do we think that is definitely something that will have a fairly high number showing up at the Classic?
Well, just knowing this region, yeah.
Yeah.
People like that deck around here, and I don't know if it's because everyone in Columbus is just a miserable human being.
No, I mean,
Including you, Morgan.
yeah, no,
That's why. Just so all you listeners know, that's definitively why I said that was just a harassment.
That's fine.
And Jordan by extension.
Yeah, for sure.
But honestly, it is a really popular deck in our local meta. I will say though, we've seen Dave and I played some local Modern this week. Dave himself has been a proponent of this. We've seen some people start bringing out some strategies that are pretty bad matchups for Tron. We've seen the amount of infects played locally go up. Dave has brought the prophecy of Death Shadow Zoo into the fold. Literally had a couple players who tweeted at us talking about how terrible like it was to get the breaks beaten off them by Dave's Death Shadow Zoo deck. So I think and we've even had a touch of that with the Red Green Land Destruction deck that's been sort of popular on Moto show up around here. The Utopia Sprawl Stone Rain deck, which is another way to sort of keep that deck down. So it'll be interesting to see if the high they had a high day 2 metagame breakdown in Dallas, but it did not do well day 2.
Right.
Our deck's going to at some point, like, especially even our local meta, at some point people have to decide they don't want to lose the deck anymore. And once they decide they're not going to lose the deck anymore, Tron has to go quiet for a little bit. Doesn't mean it won't go away forever. It's going to come back, but it might be time.
Yeah,
Sleepy.
I think, needless to say, the deck isn't dead, which everybody proclaimed it to be after Ayavugan got banned.
So. I was hoping, man. Sad times.
So if anything, I mean, it had more numbers than it had previously. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a deck that certain strategies just can't really reliably beat it. So like, I would say Jund or Jeskai control a pretty tough time with Tron, just because they have the ability to just go over the top of you. You can't really kill them quick enough. You can mess with them a little bit, but for the most part, Tron is going to be advantaged in those matchups.
Right. The late game that they can achieve is just, for most of the time, better than yours.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, I have the Jeskai control deck. That is an option for me that I could play, and I've chosen not to play it because there's so much Tron in the local metagame here. Yeah. Now, if you're in a local area that doesn't have as much Tron, then yeah, go play Jeskai. It's probably pretty good.
Yeah,
it has a lot of good matchups in the format, but Tron is not one of them.
No, not at all. It's certainly something that it definitely influences what you can play in the local tournaments. It's I'd be very hesitant to go to Monday Night Modern or what have you and like play Tron unless like my sideboard was like super inbred, basically, where I'm very well prepared for the mirror match and for the enemy decks, but it's so hard to actually pull it off and be able to do that and be effective. So that's why I like getting practice at these local tournaments is a bit difficult, is a bit hard, specifically if you are one of the many Green Red Tron players here, but at a larger stage, you may have a little bit more of an advantage for that. But you guys could be right in that people are just gunning for it and ready for it. So it might not be the best time to be carning people.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, I mean that's one of the decks that's just you're going to have a lot of good matchups and you're going to have a lot of terrible, unwinnable matchups.
Yeah.
So
you just got to hope
just got to kind of run that gambit.
Yeah, hope the day goes your way instead of the opposite. So
yeah.
Now we see Jund being another popular deck, and I fully expect there to be some amount of Jund players in the metagame. Playing the game. Hopefully they'll it'll be their turn to top 8. Again, that's a deck that much like I feel like Jeskai Control has pretty good game against most everything. No definitively best matchups, no definitively like terrible matchups. Like you have a chance.
Tron's really bad.
Tron is close. I don't disagree with you there, but you do have opportunities. Like it's not as if you just get matched up.
Blue spell.
Yeah, correct. Well, hey, Jeskai could play that.
There you go.
I'm kind of talking about these decks both at the same time, but
gotcha.
you have an opportunity to win. You can definitely snatch victory from the jaws of defeat with these kind of decks because they have answers. They have counter strategies that will allow you to be successful even against your worst matchups, which is the benefit of them. People always, and that's why people like playing these kind of strategies because they always feel like they have some play in the game. So I fully expect people to be showing up with these kind of strategies. Abs and Company as well. I feel like is going to be prevalent. People really enjoy playing that, and you could be playing the the game that people are going to lean off of Green Red Tron, which I believe helps this strategy somewhat. Definitely, they don't like seeing an Ugin being resolved against them. That's not something that they want to experience necessarily. But I definitely think that this deck is still fairly strong and would be pretty popular.
Yeah, I think if anything, I mean, if you look at the SCG Dallas metagame, I think Abs and Company is a little underrepresented. I still think that deck's really good, and for whatever reason, people just aren't playing it that much right now. So, but I mean, you should expect to see it if you're going to, a big tournament.
Yeah. Now we kind of shift into some aggressive strategies here. We have Merfolk, we have Affinity, we have Burn, and we have Zoo. And even in Zoo, we can lump in sort of Death Shadow Zoo if you want.
There are like 4 different Zoo decks right
Yeah,
now.
exactly. It's kind of hard, but I mean they all have the same sort of strategy. Different cards are effective against them if you are playing against them, of course. So you have to plan for that. But I would have to say that overall, Affinity seems to not be as prevalent in the format as it once was. It was once a king in this format, and I really feel like Affinity has just not shown up a whole lot. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's pretty underrepresented as well. Though I think it just got so beaten down after the Eldrazi winter kind of happened that. I kind of feel like it's coming back a little bit, but it's still good. It may take a little bit of time for people to fully.
It's still shy. It's like
It's like is it safe to come out?
You guys,
Yeah,
it was really rough last time. I don't like that.
I think it could be a fairly interesting choice for the Classic. In all honesty, I think a lot of people have not necessarily geared towards trying to beat that matchup. So I think it's a fairly interesting choice.
It's never terrible. I mean, it's always going to be a solid choice.
Yeah,
and it has been for as long as
consistently.
Modern's been,
yeah, just one of the best aggressive decks that you can play in the format. Yeah. So I could see that as being something that might see a little bit of an uptick. People not necessarily expecting it. What do you guys think about Burn? Burn still, in my opinion, seems not super relevant in the format in a lot of ways.
I mean, if there's going to be a lot of Jundin Tron, then
Burn
probably pretty good.
Could be a good avenue to take for sure.
Yeah. I think Burns has become it was a real player in the metagame before, but it's sort of now I think it's the kind of deck that's going to just be a spoiler. I think it and Infect sort of swapped their share of the metagame a while ago, like where it was like Burn was like a real deck and Infect was a spoiler, and now I think Infect is like a deck people prepare for, and Burn is sort of like remembered. People are like, well, I should have some cards for Burn, but everyone's kind of skimping. Like, there's a lot of decks that are sort of skimping, and Tron's one of them that just doesn't have much game against it. Like, it's Wormcoil or kind of bust there.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, you have Nature's Claims and things like that. But
but game one is.
Oh yeah, it's rough. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I really feel like Burn kind of took a hit when Nahiri, when Jeskai became really popular, because that deck's rough.
Lightning Helix.
Yeah.
Good card.
It turns out.
It's real awkward. Nahiri can also exile
Eidolon.
Yeah.
I
Even
did
if
that.
it has an attack.
You play it, don't take damage off the Nahiri getting cast, then exile.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So, that deck, in all honesty, hurts Burn in its place in the metagame. And I think that's why, Infect kind of shifted into, the premier, aggressive deck. Yeah, I would say that Burn will be there. It's still a pretty popular deck within the Midwest in itself, and people will try to play it, especially people that are trying to spike the tournament.
Yeah, it has been falling off in popularity. I think locally, the IQ that I won a couple weeks back, I had a round 1 bye, luckily enough, and I got to kind of scout the room a little bit, and there were 0 burn decks in the field of 36 or whatever it was. So. That being said, there were a couple, at Monday night, it was 20-something. So, definitely not as popular as it once was, but don't be surprised to see it.
Oh, yeah. I think that after out of all of these aggressive decks, I think the ones that will likely be there. We have Infect. I would say Infect Infinity or something that I would
Infect, Affinity, and Zoo in some whether
capacity.
Whether it's Collected Company Naya Zoo or if it's like Bushwhacker Zoo or if it's Death Shadow. Like you said, like these all kind of attack on different axes.
Mm-hmm.
But Wild Nacatl. Wild Nacatl is a common card in all of these.
Yeah, a common theme for sure. Yeah. Now, also all the other archetypes show up as one over, two over, kind of going on the way down. I know Ad Nauseam recently kind of ticked up in popularity due to its recent GP win. But it's still a very caveat sort of deck. It's not something that really gains a whole lot of popularity, even if it does win a GP.
I still feel like it's a fringe deck almost. 'Cause it's still not super popular.
Yeah. No, I would disagree. That's my other deck of choice. A big fan of Ad Nauseam decks.
Yeah.
So
definitely be prepared to play against it and know what they're capable of. But don't feel like you have to dedicate your whole sideboard to beating it.
God,
you know
no.
what I mean?
Yeah. You definitely have cards that are better against it in your sideboard and worse against it in your main deck. So you will have that happen, but it's kind of one of those decks that exists, but not necessarily is something you plan around because you very likely won't even see it. So
yeah, I think just going forward with Modern, I mean, it's definitely. I mean, we've said this many times. It's definitely a format that rewards knowing your deck and knowing the format. So if you have a deck that you're comfortable in playing, don't worry so much about the metagame. I mean, just play what you're most comfortable with, or that you feel.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have losses from decks that are bad matchups, and that it's going to happen pretty much to every single deck. It's definitely a rock paper scissors lizard Spock sort of format.
Yeah, very
I
much
want
so.
to have more than 3 options.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, you are. I think you're right. So Dave, you can still play what you want. That's the most enjoyable thing about Modern in general. Is do what you want. You can make metagame calls. You can, but sometimes they're worthless. The format's so diverse, it could just be worthless.
I mean, that's what I did when I picked up the Zoo deck, and I'm still learning how to play the deck. I'm not a master by any means, but still just trying to play it and learn it. After playing Delver for so long, but I mean, maybe Delver's it won the Open, so maybe that's a good choice again. Yeah. I don't know.
It's certainly compelling.
It's still an option.
Yeah, and but basically, it's kind of where Modern is at. I think I'm pretty excited to play some Modern again here soon, and kind of not have to worry about Standard for the time being, and that's fairly exciting. Is there a deck that you you wouldn't play this week? Not this weekend, but next weekend.
Tron.
Dave?
I would never play that deck.
Well, you'd play Blue White Tron.
Yeah, but you know which one I mean.
I know.
If I can answer that question honestly, it would still be Tron.
Yeah, no, I know.
I wouldn't play Burn, probably because I don't think it has enough good matchups that it could win the tournament, unless you get really lucky with just hitting all good matchups.
I would also not play Burn. But I would also more so not play Blue White Tron.
Well, I'm not playing that, so don't worry. I would also add this. I would also not play Living End.
Oh, yeah.
You could beat the creature decks for sure, but your deck doesn't do very much against a lot of the other decks.
Ad Nauseam, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Jeskai decks are you can stop an Emrakul sometimes, but man, I'm sure you never want to play against Remand, and that card's pretty good. So I don't know. Living End is always a deck that's sort of fringe, but that's a deck that I'd be I don't want to save that deck up this week.
Oh, for sure. What do you think of this Dredge deck that has sort of been gaining popularity amongst people?
It's too inconsistent, I think, and even if you're able to get consistent draws with it, it dies pretty hard to dedicated hate, and by that. I know, Mike, I kind of talked to you about this. Scavenging Ooze is I would not consider dedicated hate. It's a fine card against them and can sometimes stop them. But I'm talking about, Rest in Peace, Leyline of the Void, things like that just completely shut off graveyards. They really don't have a good answer to that.
Right.
Yeah, and they have benefited like that deck. I played against it on Monday and got crushed by it, but has sort of benefited from that not being in the format. But
Yeah.
it's certainly even the draws where like people don't have their dedicated hate, like there are draws where that deck just doesn't do anything. Like
Yeah.
and I think that draw is it's I'm not saying it's like super high percentage. That deck isn't just like not doing anything like 30% of the time, but there's enough like if you're talking about like there's a good chance you're going to stumble at least one game out of every match, then I don't know if it's a deck I want to play. It's also not the style of deck I would play. I don't like Dredge very much, but
Here's the thing, like the way that the format is right now, there aren't a lot of dedicated hate cards specifically for graveyards, just played in general in the format. So the format is ripe for Dredge to be pretty good, and it's still not showing up in any kind of numbers that we've seen in any tournaments. So that tells me that the deck is just too inconsistent. Sure, it could have some explosive draws. I mean, I've lost to it, but at the same time, I've also, like you said, I've also seen it just mulligan into oblivion, not do anything.
yeah, I haven't seen it. So if you want to compare it to Legacy Dredge, the grandfather, if you will. So people talk about how like if like there's Dredge hate around, then Dredge is not going to make it. But every now and then you see Dredge just take down a Legacy event. People, it gets favorable matchups and it doesn't see the hate, and a number of decks can't interact with it, and that's it. It wins the event. I've yet to see this Dredge deck do that. I've yet to see it. Has it even top 8'd since we've started talking about it? Like top 16'd?
And it's not like for lack of hype. I mean,
no, for sure. And
there were articles out there. I've seen videos.
There's one Dredge deck in day 2 of the Open. So like, at some point, the deck would have to be good enough without hate to make it through to the end of a tournament. And if it can't even make it into like the top 32, that without dedicated hate, then there you go.
That's shows what I'm saying. Yeah. Like it's not like there's a bunch of hate in the format, and that's why it's losing.
Right.
It's losing because it's just not good.
I mean, I've seen firsthand some of the draws that go off, and you're like, and I could totally see becoming a believer on that. Be like, whoa, okay, that was cool. But then the draws where you're like, all right, I don't have a dredger, or I didn't hit the things I needed to. Like, it is bad. It's real bad.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's still a very linear deck, and I think there are other choices that are better. Like Affinity is also a linear deck, and that is just a lot more consistent and can fight through the hate that it sees.
Yeah, and the awkward thing is like it's a linear deck, but it's a linear deck that's still a creature deck that's attacking. It's not doing what Dredge and other formats is doing, where it can combo off. Like I did some of the ones locally I've seen they have played like an Unbearer Rights package, you know what I mean? So that does happen, but most of them are not doing that. And like that means that there's a bunch of decks that just play like solid creature removal, and that's enough to beat the deck. And that's awkward for Dredge. That's what really makes it awkward, is they can be beaten or they can be raced by regular removal spells, which Dredge and Legacy can never have happen. Like they're not getting beaten by a Swords of Plowshares. Yeah. So just something interesting. So
Interesting.
that's a good wrap of the forum. Do we want to at least? Yeah, we sort of alluded to this, but what are we planning? You said what would you definitely not play? What are you planning on playing at our Modern Classic as of right now? What are you thinking?
For me, I only really have two options, which is Tron and Nauseam.
Tron
Nauseam.
Slam them together?
Yeah, just play the 120 card deck.
Nice.
The 15 card sideboard I'd have to pare down to would be quite difficult, but
That'd be sweet.
I just really enjoy like playing both of those decks. I really enjoy playing Tron, but then again, like there's just the fear that it's just not going to have the viability within that tournament in particular to place to get top 8, what have you.
Is this a scouting situation then? Like bring both decks with you and just kind of walk around the room?
I mean, it very well could be. But I'm fairly comfortable with both decks. I definitely need to get more reps in with both of them, depending on what I decide to play. But they're both going to be fun, and I'm going to enjoy my time regardless of what I decide to play. So, but it's going to be one of those two decks.
All right, so either Ad Nauseam or Tron. Dave? Yeah. I know you're feeling the pool right now. No doubt.
That Delver's trying to draw you in.
Not really, actually. I mean, it is an option. I have all the cards, but
not really, but it's an option.
Not really, but you never know. Might get drunk one night, do some things I might regret.
There's phone numbers you can call that are like they go scream into the void instead of calling her. Just so you know.
Okay, good to know. No, I think as of right now, I play Death Shadow Zoo still. I think it's pretty well positioned in the format, and even if you play against a bad matchup, the deck is so explosive. Sometimes you can just like Thoughtseize their hate card that they were leaning on, and then just easily win. And deck is more consistent, you would think, being like a 4-color aggressive deck because it has so many cyclers in it. I think the one thing for me is I don't have that much experience playing against other aggressive decks or burn decks, so it definitely takes a lot of practice to kind of get a feel for like, okay, how much damage should I be taking here? Like, should I be really holding back? So it can get a little tricky, but yeah, I think I'm going to go with that. Yeah.
What about you, Mike?
I've been wanting to play this, one of these core decks for a major tournament for a little while here. It's been a slow training process for myself. I do like Giftstron a lot, but I think I still like the format still needs to settle out a little more and be a little less red green Tron dominated. I just can't afford to give up that many losses. I think if it was an open, I would be okay with playing Giftstron just like I was at the last open because your chances even in a high percentage metagame are a lot lower. But so probably one of the core decks. I don't know which version yet. I've been testing the blue version. It'll probably have 4 Kikis and an Emrakul in it though because I think that's probably the right way to go. Just deciding what the other cards to go with it are is sort of the fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't disagree with you there. So I think we're all pretty excited though. Modern's such a great format to play, and you just kind of wanted to get in there and crack some skulls, things like that. Avoid probably not though, because skull cracks not that great in the format right now.
Yeah, we said don't play burn.
Don't play burn. That's true. No cracking skulls. So that's pretty much it for our competitive segment. Next up, we have our question of the week. So we'll kind of dive into this here real quick. So in light of recent issues surrounding travel visas for the upcoming Pro Tour Sydney, would you prefer all Pro Tours being held in a centralized location? So, for example, a good one to pick would be Seattle, where the headquarters of Wizards of the Coast is located. Or I guess technically it's Redmond? Is it Redmond? I forget.
I don't know.
I don't know if it's Seattle proper or not. Who cares?
Renton?
Renton, that's what it is. Yeah. But, when we kind of take a look at this, if we have them all in one location, we do kind of get a place where you can invest in, these facilities and things like that, and be able to consistently have probably the same sort of coverage, from tournament to tournament, hopefully, since we're not, having to worry about transporting equipment anywhere. So that might be, a proper upside, but there's going to be, trade-offs basically.
I think for me, having the Pro Tours be in different spots around the world is a draw. Like that makes me want to qualify for the Pro Tour. And obviously I'm biased because I've had those experiences of I've gotten to go to different countries to play Magic, which is awesome. But it definitely would have not have been as cool as of all the Pro Tours I played in were in the United States. You know what I mean? I got to have these experiences that I probably never would have had because they had Pro Tours in Japan and in Europe and things like that. So I definitely feel like it would take away from the Pro Tour experience if they had them all in one place. Now, would I still try to qualify if they were all in Seattle? Probably, but I wouldn't be as excited as hey, there's a Pro Tour in Australia. That's pretty awesome. When am I ever going to go to Australia? So that might actually make me go out and try to qualify. Now, I didn't for this one because of things outside of the game, but otherwise I would have been excited to try to qualify for it.
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of split on this one. I agree with everything you said. We have a friend of the show, Riley Curran, who he got to go to Atlanta and Milwaukee, right? which like it's cool. He went to the Pro Tour twice, but he went to Atlanta and Milwaukee. You know what I mean? So like, whereas you've gotten to go to Japan, Dublin, the Netherlands, right?
Yeah, Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
Yeah.
I got to go to Spain. You know what I mean? Like that's now perspective is going to be different for everyone though. Like if you're a Spanish player, then you're like, well, like I'd rather go to Seattle. But so I do agree it's a draw, the different places to travel. But I also feel like again there'd have to be things like if it meant increased prize pool, if it meant like it was a bigger like a bigger celebration, like almost like I mean, not to compare to other games, but like what Pokemon Nets and Pokemon Worlds do, like those are huge like celebrations. Whereas Pro Tours have become pretty low key. Like I had a lot of fun where I went to, and I felt like I was treated really, really well. But I also felt like it was like tiny. Really, it was sort of tiny. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, the Pro Tours tend to be more exclusive,
Right, but I don't.
and they've kind of made them that way.
They again, they didn't have to be technically, but I do think the one thing to consider, which may, I don't know, may be dark, but I'm sorry everybody, but our world climate, our global climate has gotten a lot riskier. Like, you know, we had another awful attack in Turkey this week. So I think that's something to add to that thought. Like, not that Seattle's immediately safe. Like, all right, well, good, no, we're never going to get attacked. But it does sort of reduce some of the question marks of, you know, publicizing an event where a lot of Americans are going to be in countries where maybe somebody doesn't like that so much. It does reduce all of their issues with Pro Tour payouts, right? Like, you know, we just had this visa issue here for Australia. Well, that doesn't happen. They get to control their stipulations here, you know, for them. So I think there's a lot of fixes that happen if they're all in one place. Or you just all in the United States. That's obviously a really shallow worldview and obviously is upsetting for a lot of players who play on the global scale. So I'm certainly I don't think my argument's defensible on that purpose. It probably sounds very shallow and like, you know, U.S. centric, but I think there are legitimate reasons to say yes to this.
Yeah, I could definitely see the argument for the other side of it for sure, and I think like and people keep bringing this up about how they want Magic to be an esport or they want to compete with, you know, some of these other games, the Hearthstone and things like that. I don't know if that's really. I've never really been convinced that that's where Magic should try to go. It's somewhat the same demographic, but it's really not the same game. And I think it's hard for Magic to compete with you know, other digital games like that. So I don't know if that's really the what should be the focus of what they're trying to do.
Old man Dave here with his hot take. I mean, I don't know if Magic needs these microtransactions and skins. What are skins?
Skins.
In my day, we played shirts and skins. Is that the same? I struggle with that. I don't know if you're right, or I don't know if that's a really old school mentality.
No, I mean, like I could see it being like, okay, you know, this is the future. This is where we want to be, but I don't know if that's the right way to go about it. I don't know if that's really. It's like, do you really want that? Because it seems like they would have to make a lot of changes to make it even.
Yeah, they'd have to make their Pro Tours parties like all the League of Legends events.
Yeah,
are.
I mean, I don't know.
But those parties mean like millions of dollars to
Like,
the players, not hundreds.
Why can't the Magic Pro Tour just be the Magic Pro Tour? Why does it have to try to be,
interesting.
you know,
Dave's
Hearthstone
trying to make the
Championship?
Pro Tour great again. Isn't that interesting?
I mean, so the reason that it has to be those things is because those things are relevant. And that's what it breaks down to. Like relevancy in the actual market. If you do not change with the, you know, people, if you don't change as a product and the generations shift, your product will no longer be relevant. So that's the thing. Like you always have to be relevant to your demographic, and you can't just act like the demographic doesn't change if generations change.
Yeah, but it's not like Magic is irrelevant now. I mean, it's
I'm
more
not-
popular than it's ever been, and the
I'm-
Pro Tour is still basically the same as it's always been.
I mean, that may hold true for now, but you would really have to see where like your new players are coming in at. What is their entry point, and what what are they doing? Like, so Magic may be bigger than it's ever been, but it's still nothing. Compared to when you look at, Hearthstone with payouts, with popularity, with people watching it. as well as playing it. And maybe Magic can't ever compete naturally with Hearthstone, because when you really look at Hearthstone, it has such an easy way to access it and start playing it that Magic just doesn't have. You have duels, but that is we all here know that that's not the complete depth of the game. You can get pretty far in duels, and you can have a very healthy experience, but you're not going to get the same experience you get from playing Magic Online or playing paper cards.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, just Magic as a game is much more complex,
correct,
than some of these other games that you see. And I just don't know that it lends itself well to being an e-sport.
I hate that argument. I hate that argument so much. So,
Okay.
we have to just appeal to, the lowest common denominator because of this. Well, Magic's a hard game, so we really shouldn't try to appeal to people. I mean, will they understand things like shadow and flanking?
I'm not
sorry.
saying we shouldn't try
No,
to,
but
it's hard. It's hard. Like, you'd have to really change the game or really change the way that coverage is presented
We're going to
in order to do
a different
that.
conversation here, so I don't want to derail too far. But in all honesty, people play Magic the Gathering, especially Magic Online, despite the client, not because of the client, because the game is so damn good. Sorry, buddy.
No, I mean
Okay.
that's very true.
But it's despite, so they don't have to change the game. Maybe you're saying from a visual level, they could work on the visuals. That could be done. The problem is they don't take the resources and okay, this department is going to figure out how do we make Magic visually look this way, not just in Magic
Yeah.
Online, but on a screen. It has nothing to do with the game. The game is, it's perfection. It gets
Yeah,
argued
I'm not-
multiple times.
I'm not saying it's
It is the
not.
pinnacle of game design of human creation. Okay, I'm not kidding. It goes in
Yeah.
lines from Mancala to checkers to chess to Magic. Okay, from the monkey to the guy standing upright. Okay, so we have to assume that players who are interested in the game want to play the game well and see the game being played at its best. Right? All the major sports have arcane rules. Yeah, people are excited by the crunching hits in football, but the actual skill it takes to play football and the actual design skill of offense versus defense is really technical, right? Yeah, people
Well,
remember
football
the big,
is the best of both worlds, though.
It does.
Because
It really
it's very
does.
it's very strategic, but it's also exciting.
right. So you got to figure out how to highlight that, but you don't have to change the game. The game is fundamentally good.
Right. All right. Let me rephrase. The game. I agree with you. It's the best game. I don't think they need to change anything about it, and that's part of why. What makes it the best is the complexity of it. It's just presenting that to a broader audience is harder. For somebody that doesn't know what Magic is, it's very hard to just pull up a stream and be like, "Oh yeah, I have no idea what's going on."
Here's where you meet in the middle. Paper Magic should not be the Magic that's being played and streamed, right? If you had a visual representation of Magic that looked half as good as Hearthstone, right, that clearly indicated what was going on, but had flourishes while doing it and animation flourishes while doing it, while still playing the same game, and you had the people just playing against each other on the computer, that'd be fine. That would be absolutely fine. That's how you do it. You know what I mean? And it's feasible for all these other large games. So it comes down to this. Sorry, we got really far away from our.
That's
Pro Tour question.
okay. we can reel it back. That's a very fruitful discussion that we definitely had. But as far as in relation to our question of the week, I feel that Magic will never do this. I feel like Magic will never have the Pro Tour in a same spot every year. Just for the sheer fact that if one of your taglines for the game is play the game, see the world, and the highest level of the tournament will cause you to never see anything but that section of the world, then you have defeated the purpose of the game. And defeated the purpose of your tagline, and to really appeal to people at that level. And I don't feel like that's fair. I feel like people play this game all around the world, and for you to limit the highest level of play, the Pro Tour, to one section of the world really is disingenuous to your entire player base. So you do have safety concerns and things like that, but I feel like if you're going to try to be on the Pro Tour, but your country will never host a Pro Tour, that kind of loses its luster. You're always the away team.
Well, that's true for a lot of countries,
Yeah.
so that argument doesn't really work. But
Right. Yeah.
Sure, but at least at the very possibility, you do have the potentiality of having a home home
get
game.
you.
You know,
PT Liechtenstein is not happening, man.
I understand that, but I mean, you can have a Pro Tour in Europe.
Sure,
you can have a Pro Tour in the one of the Asian countries, things like that, it's like you have that potentiality, that chance to have like a quote unquote local pro tour. When you sector it off to one section like that doesn't show that. And like you can even see with every other game has their their highest level play, and in different countries, because it's a multicultural game. It's a game that is played everywhere. So why not give it a chance to actually be played everywhere at the highest level?
All right, let me throw this at you.
Okay.
So you said you don't think that'll ever happen. I could definitely see a world where that is the case. If they decide,
Darkest timeline.
what?
The darkest timeline.
If they decide that, hey, you know what, play the games through the world. It's not really meant for the Pro Tour, but hey, if you want to travel to GPs, we still have GPs all over the world. You could travel and do that.
The world itself travels.
Right.
That's not the highest level of play, though.
But if they just say,
Worlds
hey,
is
you
the
know
highest
what?
level of play.
And then Worlds also changes too.
I'm sorry.
But I mean, you can't see them saying like, hey, you know what we're gonna do, because we've already seen they've kind of done this already with when they cut the the Platinum Pro and say, hey, you know what, we're gonna dump all this money into Worlds. We want to make this more visible. So if they take the Pro Tour and be like, you know what, we're gonna have all the Pro Tours in one centralized location, but now the winner gets $100,000 instead of $40,000. Does that make it more visible to people outside of the game? Be like, hey, you know what? Pro Tour is actually paying out, a decent amount of money. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I don't know if that's where they'll go, but I could definitely see a world where they go that direction.
I think that if they ever made that shift, ever made that change, then that shows an actual decline in Magic for the future.
I mean, it's a
possible.
big change.
So I hope that they never make that change. I hope that they still have the viability to travel around the world for the Pro Tour, and give people that potentiality. And I understand that Worlds is most certainly the quote unquote like the highest echelon, but I still feel like the Pro Tour is still like the level that people are drawn to. That's why we have the Pro Tour Hall of Fame. That's why we have people like Mike that are still able to queue, like you that are still able to queue, that are not like professional players. So it's the most easily attainable highest level of play. If you are a player like me or you or Mike, it is the level of play that we can hope to attain in our Magic careers.
Yeah,
and I still feel like it's important for that to travel around the world.
I agree with that.
I will again meet you in the middle. So I don't think Magic in its current iteration could do that. But if they ever did go to an online client where they had to have computers set up for people to play across from each other, then it becomes a station location because they're not going to travel these machines around.
But you still have League of Legends doing that. You still have Hearthstone doing that, where these
How many
tournaments
League of Legends teams are in those tournaments?
That's the difference. That's the diametric difference between
Absolutely,
League
it
of
is.
Legends
And that's what I'm
Magic.
telling you. If they ever went to that system, they're only going to have one location for all these computers to be set up.
Potentially. But then you make that. And then I think the thing is that then fundamentally changed as a Pro Tour, because like most of the time when you have like the larger esport tournaments, they're in conjunction with a bigger convention of some persuasion.
There's a way that this could change as well. You could literally still just play the whole tournament in paper Magic, except for the feature match area.
Mm-hmm.
And they have all the decks for anybody in the feature match area loaded up to play
I feel
digitally.
like we talked about this before.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think that's the direction it's going to head. It's the future, baby.
Ride
the wave.
That would allow them to do some of the unique things that they've been able to do for things like the Community Cup and the MOCS championships, where they're able to pull up the dual screen as they're sideboarding, so you can see kind of everything that's going on.
The only issue with that, the only issue with going to that system, and again, this is far from here, but is Moto heavily reduces the ability to bluff your opponent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like card game elements to Magic that are lost no matter how you set up an online system. It's one of the reasons that Hearthstone can get away with random number generator effects and that sort of thing, because it never feels like you're playing against a real opponent. You can never communicate with them, and they can all just be computers. Who cares? Magic having that face-to-face element is a big deal, and there's a lot of players whose game is much better face-to-face than it is even online. So, but anyways, Stick a kebab in this one.
Yeah, I think it was a very good discussion. We saw a lot of different levels of variation between like what the possible outcomes could be, and I think that it is something that we will see. I think a change in the location of the Pro Tour requires a change in how Magic is presented.
The philosophy.
Yes, the philosophy behind Magic, not necessarily the game. Obviously, we've established the game's great, but how the game is presented would need to change, and I think the health of the game would change as well, or need to change. So. But tell us how you feel about it. I'm sure that this is a pretty contentious point, so I imagine we'll get some feedback on it for sure, and I'm excited to see it. So over the weekend, we have a GP in Sao Paulo, which is team limited. No coverage for it, but it is 4th of July weekend.
How many weeks in a row are we going to have GPs with no coverage?
I'm telling you, man.
Like, we're just not getting coverage again until the Pro Tour? Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm glad you put all that money back into it, Wizards. I'm glad you're working on revamping all your coverage. This is trash.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate. But here in the States, it is obviously the 4th of July weekend. So
our Independence Day.
Our Independence Day, which is fairly exciting. So have safe celebrations over the weekend. Drink responsibly if you choose to do so. Use fireworks extremely responsibly if you do so. Also, the former and the latter, if done responsibly, will work well. If done irresponsibly, causes limb damage. So just be wary.
You don't want your hand to end up looking like some sort of Emrakul grotesque mutation at the end of 4th of July. Then.
You don't want to have a fourth McCruel of July.
Fourth McCruel, the Emra Fourth.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like as we kind of said that we're going to be taking next week off due to the holiday, and there kind of being a lull in coverage. So we'll be back the week after, though, with our very very long, very very detailed set review show.
Palooza.
Yes, correct. The Palooza shall returneth.
For it was foreseen.
Yes. But that's pretty much it for this episode. If you want, please do follow us on Twitter. We are at @YourEndStep, or you can just do a search for Your End Step and we'll come up. We also have a Facebook page. Just do a quick search on Facebook for @YourEndStep and give us a quick like. If you want to contact us via email, it's @YourEndStep@gmail.com. And we are also available via iTunes and the Google Play Store. So hopefully you go there, subscribe to us, give us a review, if you will. We do appreciate that. It gives us a lot of visibility. And then lets us know how you feel about the show, which is very important to us. We are also available on MTG Cast, which is a lovely Magic the Gathering podcast hosting service. So definitely take a look. You download our show from there and check out some other shows. I know, Mike, you do really enjoy Magic the Amateuring.
And we have shout out to our good buddies at Monday Night Magic and Chewy and them.
For sure. Definitely give them a shout, a shot, I should say.
I want to mention that MTG Cast is looking at doing some fundraising efforts.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you are a person who enjoys a number of the casts on MTG Cast, there is a donate button. So maybe consider giving them a couple of your bucks for all of the great casts that provide a lot of really solid entertainment for free.
Yeah, for sure. We are fortunate enough to have a outside sponsor that helps with our hosting and things like that. But so a lot of those casts that are on there do their hosting through MTG Cast at no cost. And
the guys running it also foot the bill for hosting the entire site without we are not currently charged to be on that site.
Correct.
So.
Very very accurate. So if it is something that you enjoy, put your money where your ears are, I guess, technically.
Don't put it in there. It's dirty. You'll get an infection.
Well, you shouldn't put money in your mouth either. It's pretty bad, too.
Yeah, well, they say put your money where your mouth is. You should put your money in your ear.
Where your ears are, then?
I guess.
I don't know. It's a bad analogy. I'm sorry,
guys. Do you
guys.
hear that money?
Just give MTG...
Just say money talks, right?
Yeah, just, if you are able to, definitely consider, making a donation to MTG Cast if you do enjoy their services. But, that's pretty much everything. Definitely check out Comic Town on Facebook for more information about the Modern Classic that's going to be happening. We hope to see you out there. If you do see us there, definitely say hi. And, give us some feedback about the show or, whatever. Just say hi. We'll say hi back. We're friendly. We're all very nice people. As long as you're very nice, we'll be cool. We'll be cool, babe. Would be
As
cool.
long as Morgan's hood is down. If his hood's up, he's hangry.
Yeah,
Don't talk to him.
if hood's up, and to be fair, probably no hoods. It's summer.
Yeah,
It's
fair.
summer. It's a bit hot. It could be cold where the vent is, but doubtful. Doubtful cold enough for a hoodie. But that's pretty much everything for this week. We'll catch you guys next time. You have a wonderful 4th of July and a wonderful rest of your week.